Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar in partnership with Neoscope. It's a gray looking day here at our office in Basel, but today's webinar won't make you feel all gloomy and under the weather because we have prepared something interesting for you. Now, with the current demand to post and update content right away, there's this wish from content managers to also create and manage content faster and easier. While that is possible, there seems to be a visual disconnect. It's either it is easy but no way to right away see your work, or, well, you can see what you're doing or even get a preview, but it's complex or requires multiple clicking, right? Knowing how fast-paced some of their tasks are, we are aware that it's not the way to go, long-term at least. Also, we want our users happy, right? Because in the end, it is about them. We develop templates for them. This whole ease of use is for them. And ultimately, it will affect us, website visitors, because we expect good, updated content. In today's topic, we aim to share to you how to integrate React apps with your CMS the modern way. My name is Cass, and I'm from the services team at Magnolia. I will be taking care of the flow of today's webinar, making sure that your questions will be seen and heard. Our very own product manager, Topher, or Topher Zimmerman as I call him, will talk about the new headless "What you see is what you get" SPA editing, along with a live demo and live coding. Marcel Barthold, a project manager at Neoscope, will share some of the pain points and wishes that they have collected from customers' feedback and how changing those has led to happy customers. Let's have a quick run through today's agenda. Let's make our users happy. Yes, this is the key to successful digital experience. The new headless with a live demo. Let's make a component editable, done via live coding, wrap up, and Q&A. Now, if you have some comments, reactions, or even questions while the presentation is ongoing, please feel free to drop them into the according boxes or panels. On the screen, you can see how the icon for the Q&A panel looks like. This is to send in your questions. In doing so, you won't be interrupting the presentation. If you think the demo is cool, don't be shy and send in a thumbs up or a clap. Please also know that this webinar is recorded. Recording will be sent via email. Now, if you're as ready as I am, let's go ahead and kickstart today's webinar. But before we start, just a few words about who we are, for those of you who are new to Magnolia and to Neoscope. For more than 20 years now, it's been our mission at Magnolia to build software that is easy to use, flexible to match the client's own goals and infrastructure, and provides good value for their investment. We think that's what good technology does. It takes the complex and makes it simple and achievable. You can see anything from the New York Times, CNN Philippines, Atlassian, automakers like Toyota and Seat, and some of the world's leading finance and travel brands using our next generation CMS to create amazing digital experience for their customers. And now, I hand it off to Marcel from our partner Neoscope to also introduce Neoscope and then get us right into the topic.
Thanks, Cass. So I'm Marcel. I'm working at Neoscope, a digital agency based in Hanover, Germany, and it was founded in 2010. So this year we have our 10th anniversary, which we cannot really excitedly have a party for, but nonetheless, we will are 10 years here now, and Neoscope is since the beginning a gold partner for a certified gold partner for Magnolia, and has three main services that it's providing. So we are doing corporate websites like one we will be showing you today, and we are doing e-commerce solutions, but in a custom way, so not something like you will do with Magenta or Core, but very custom solutions for e-commerce. And also we are doing web-based applications like for internal use for salespeople or something else like this. But now to start the webinar really this time and go back to our agenda, we will try to make our users happy. And I will tell you a little story we had with one of our customers, in this case, Inner City. For disclosure for REC, Inner City is one of Hanover's municipal utilities company. They deliver gas, electricity, heating, and drinking water, and much more in Hanover, but they are also delivering electricity and gas for the whole country, for whole Germany. They have over 2,800 employees right now, and last year was their first year where they are delivered over 2 billion euros in revenue. So they approached us almost 2 years ago now and wanted to make a relaunch for their website, innercity.de. They had a few pain points and wishes based almost all on the CMS that they were using at the moment. And this CMS was named Fiona. It was a very powerful and almost ahead of the curve CMS for the time being, but it was also very complex. And powerful and complex is not a very good combination. And also the CMS was very slow, so you had several loading time issues and deeply nested menus that accelerated these slowness of the CMS. And it was one of the first headless CMSs out there, but with headless, you have a visual disconnect, and in combination with slowness and powerful but complex, the authors were not really confident in what they were trying to edit, and also it took them a long, long time. So for the relaunch, the wishes from Inner City was that they get a new CMS and a new front-end site, actually, and that the new CMS would be fast and easy to use with what you see is what you get approach. So they have a visual connection to what they are trying to edit, and so that in the end they can use the CMS with confidence and edit what they are trying to do with confidence. So our solution for this case was a hybrid headless approach with Magnolia and React. And what you can see on the left is the new innercity.de front page, the front-end version, and on the right, what the author is seeing in Magnolia. And what you can see right now here is that they are exactly the same, only added with the green bars that Magnolia is providing to edit the content underneath it. So that was our solution. And to tell you more about the magic that is happening underneath, I will hand over to Topher to tell you more about the new headless approach.
Great, thanks Marcel. Hello everybody from my side. It's great to see such a big attendance today. And I'm very happy to have the honor really of presenting this new technology that we have at Magnolia. I just want to start by saying I think the content today is relevant whether you're using Magnolia or another CMS. It's really about the author experience and about how we can integrate with front-end technologies. But of course, we'll be showing how it works with Magnolia. Yeah, the new headless. So what we're talking about is headless that's visual, where you're connected to the content you're editing, and you've got this what you see is what you get connection to your application. Yeah, maybe just really quickly myself. I am a developer. I've been a developer since I was a kid, hacking on the Apple IIe with my friends, and then going through a career spanning working at web agencies, working at product companies, doing freelance work, doing startups, so kind of covering the whole gambit. And I landed at Magnolia about 9 years ago as a developer, and have transitioned now to product manager, but I'm still a developer. So what needed to be fixed with headless? What's wrong with headless? Headless is fantastic, especially for developers, as you know. Lets us use the tools that we want to use. But sadly, it's kind of leaving the authors behind in a few ways. So I think there's 4 key things that can really get in your way in like a headless implementation. So the most obvious one is previewing, right? Because you're typically in this sort of form-based editing experience. You don't actually see what you're creating. And so either you just work without a preview, which in some contexts is just fine, or you have a preview, but you need to switch back and forth. You have your application where you're editing, and then you hit the preview button, you see what's changed. Oh, it's not quite right, switch back. So it's not terribly efficient. Another issue is finding the content. So you may have something that you want to, somebody's reported a problem with the website, there's a typo somewhere, you want to find it real fast and fix it, but you go into the headless application and you're kind of hunting around to find what you need to fix. And then kind of related to these is context. And context, it's a bit abstract, but it's just the idea that when I'm editing something in a headless form, and we'll look at that later, okay, that's fine. I can edit that content, and I can even have a preview, but I might not really understand the whole scope of that change. Is it just changing that one item that I'm editing, or where is that showing up on the website? And then creative control is the last one. I can only fill out the fields that are on that form. What is that for a marketer who's used to really creating an experience, who really wants to optimize a page to convert and make things happen? I might not be able to modify the layout. If I need to make a more serious change, either I can't, or I need to go back to the developer to make that change in the layout or the app. I only have control on that one piece of content that I'm editing. Just as an example of what can happen, I mean, if you put all that together, when we say let's make users or authoring users happy, what's behind that happy? It's basically that they're productive, that they're in control, and that they're confident about what they're doing. And here's an example of somebody who was probably using a headless CMS because I don't think they intended to have promotions about Conversatio. I'm not even sure what Conversatio is, and I'm not sure what NAL is. So obviously, whoever was editing that content didn't actually see the experience that they were creating. Here's a few other examples. This is from CSS Tricks. They're also talking about how things can go wrong when you don't really see the result of what you're doing. You can have content, dripping over the edges of your boxes and that sort of thing. This is an experience where you don't have the full information, about what it is changing when you're editing something. If we, if we extend this out of the web sphere into architecture, this might be the same kind of problem that you would get when you didn't have the full information about what you were creating. Maybe you had some specs, but you didn't have the full picture, and you create something that's not exactly what was intended. So what's the solution? Well, one approach is what we're calling visual SPA editing. And the idea is that to bring the authors back to the experience. So we get all the benefits that we already know about for developers to go headless, but authors still get a visual experience. They see what they're doing. And getting back to this topic of, that it's not just about Magnolia, I mean, this is actually a thing, right? It's not just us. A lot of CMSs we've seen rollouts in the last year. It's definitely like the hot new thing. What I think is kind of unique about our approach, from what I've heard from other developers, is how easy it is with Magnolia. So you might have heard of our light development approach. That merges really well with this, so that developers have an easy time. They get to use the the SPA language that they like, React, Angular, or whatever, and the CMS bindings are just as easy. On the other hand, compared to some of the headless CMSs that are coming in this direction, we just go a bit further. We really cover the full experience, as I think I can show you today. And then maybe just a note about SPA. We kind of focused, we chose SPA as our terminology because we didn't want to say React, Vue, Angular, Svelte, Preact, Aurelia all the time. So that's kind of our catch-all. But although it can be used for SPA, I just want to emphasize you can also use it for static sites. With the static site generators and that sort of thing. Maybe we should have termed it visual headless editing. That's what it's really all about. And then the other thing, you already saw this site from Marcel, the Inner-City site, and you might be wondering, is this just about websites? I thought we were talking about SPAs. What isn't React for interactive things? And that's what we thought too. But we really we really followed the lead of our partners and customers. They've been surging ahead and making this work. Neoscope has been very innovative on this, and we're learning from them and our other partners and customers. And we've basically distilled this approach that they're doing and productized it and made it easy to use. And what we learned is that people are using React and Angular and Vue and so forth, not just for interactive sites, but for regular websites. It's just the developer experience is so great. People are excited about the technologies, and you can use it for interactive or non-interactive situations. So it's all possible. You can do something like a website, you can do something interactive, you can do a PWA, native, even native mobile apps. But okay, let's dive in to see what I'm really talking about here. I want to show you first the websites that we're talking about. And before I show you my demo project, I mean, just take a look at this, this site from this page from Inner-City. First of all, it's just a beautiful website. But you can see this is a really, really rich page. We've got that promotional content up top. People can dig into something. They can download some stuff. They can link to other content. They can learn about how to handle moving from house to house. There's some sort of formula. So you can see this is a really rich page. How would you manage this in a headless context, right? It's not just filling out a form. And now we jump over to our demo project that I want to show you today. And you'll see it's a very similar kind of scenario. Doesn't look quite as sharp as the Inner-City, but I think you get the idea. You've got a lot of different things. You've got, we're promoting trips, and these aren't just automatic lists. These are items that the marketer might want to be promoting. We've got like a banner and a call to action, another different set of tours, and so forth. Actually, I should have refreshed this. So yeah, so that's what it looks like. That's what we want to create. What does this look like for the author? What kind of experience do they have? So again, I'm showing you Magnolia today, but this is going to be probably relevant for other CMSs. But first, I want to show you the Tours app in Magnolia. And this is really similar to what you expect from a headless CMS. You basically have this content type called Tours. I can dive into this app. I have a list of all my tours. And if I edit one of them, I just have a form, right? And that's fine, all well and good for this content. Description, an image, tour types, a body text. So it's very structured content, which is nice on one perspective. It's very straightforward. I can use it in different contexts, but I don't really have an understanding, again, of how this is going to show up on the website. I don't have a preview. I could have a button that would jump to a preview, but I don't see it right here. I don't really know where it's going to show up on the website, that context, and I definitely don't have much control. Image. Okay, I can add one image. What if I want another image? What if I want to put an image, in among the text? So that's just sort of an example of structured content. I'm not saying that there's not a place for it in a website, but alone it's not enough. So let's take a look at what kind of experience we can offer somebody for these rich landing pages. So let's jump over to the Pages app. And here we have the integration and the website. Already an author can kind of drill into the website. They already get a preview of kind of the hierarchy of the system. They could edit any of these pages. Let's take a look at the home page. This is what Marcel was showing you before, that you see the experience in the editor. And the cool thing is that this isn't just an approximation of the experience. This is the actual React app being loaded in an editor. So what if I want to edit something? Okay, oh, I've got some columns. I've got this title component. I can just edit it. we make it really easy for you. Okay, I see my change. Cool, perfect. What else? Oh, then we've got these tours. Like I said, these are, I mean, we could have an automatic generated list, but this is a curated list. Let's say, actually, you really want to promote this, this Basel holiday. So let's move this over here. Great, now it's the first component in that list. I could also, this is actually kind of an interesting example of managing experience that's related to that other content, right? Here's that tour content, and I can use it in here and have control over it to build an experience and do some curation. I can see the rest of the whole page, and for example, I can also add a new component. How does that look like? Oh, let's just add an image and select an image. Surfing, that's always nice. And I can see the change right away. Yeah, so that's that authoring experience where I'm really in control of what I'm doing. And if we look over at the actual headless application running, I see the changes that I've made. It's very easy for me. I'm promoting a holiday in Basel, maybe something to think about. And I've got the image down at the bottom. All right, that's kind of the demo of what I'm talking about. Let's jump back to the presentation. And show you how it works. I know that there's probably a majority of developers today. Let's take a look back at kind of basic headless that we all understand, right? It's always about these content types, for example, tours, and I'm managing them in my CMS at the bottom, and I'm delivering a list of content. That would be that list of tours, and that would typically show up in one place in my app or experience, right? And the rest of it is probably just hard-coded React app, right? So an author is in control of like a region of the experience. What's new here is that the SPA editor, we're not just creating a list of content, we're actually kind of creating a tree of content. So what do I mean by tree? Well, I don't know if you remember, but I had like that main area at the top. I could have another area, that's kind of the first branch. And within a branch, I can have another list of items. It can branch again. Even a component can have its own contents. Like I could have an accordion component and want to put other things in there. And what this enables us is that an author now, instead of controlling just a region of experience, they can control the entire experience. But it's actually still up to you as the developer how much you want to make content manageable. Yeah, a tree. So I think you can just imagine that the possibilities this gives you, right? You're not limited anymore. You can structure it any way you want. At any branch, you can go deeper. And we can imagine the leaves or maybe the flowers of this tree are the end components that are being delivered in the experience. So it gives you an incredible degree of flexibility. What is this tree? I mean, it's really, it's similar to a list, right? It is a list of objects, but there's two differences. In this list, it's not always tours, right? The list can contain a variety of different component types, like a jumbotron, a heading, an image, an accordion, and each object can have its own list. So these are the two changes from a simple list that give us this power to headlessly manage rich, very rich content. But it's still headless. It's not, you might be seeing this page editor and be thinking, hey, didn't we move away from that? What about this whole like separation of presentation and content? Well, is that out the window? And I'm happy to say that no, it's not, because it's not that we're just creating a chunk of HTML here. This is still a very managed structure. It's not as rigid as a content type, but each component can be expressed as a node in JSON, and each component you can define for an area what types of components it can have. So it's still structured, and you can see this is kind of the scenario that the author is editing content, and then this content can be delivered headlessly, And this gets picked up by the end app, and it basically parses this tree and creates components for each element in the tree. And if we just looked a little closely at this, at each of these nodes, they all have this template. And this is how the end React app knows which React component to instantiate. So look, here we have spa LM. This is just our module, and we should create a paragraph. And then it has the content. Find us at the end of the road. Or an expander. You know, here up above we have this components expander. So this is what's passed along from the CMS that then is interpreted in the spa. Yeah, I think this is just a quick overview. So I think it's easiest to understand if we keep in mind that there's two key parts. There's the SPA and there's the CMS. And what we deliver to make it possible to make your SPA manageable by content authors is an NPM package. So we call it React Editor. And that gives you three things. You get an editable page, and this is kind of that top level that's going to fetch the proper content for you, give you, tell you all the content that's on that page in that tree of JSON. And then there's an editable area, and you can drop these in anywhere you want to give the author control. So that's what's cool. You can start with your app just as it is and say, progressively, let's take this piece and let them add some marketing content there. And then you would just drop in this editable area. And then the editable component, that's what handles every single component. And what the library is doing behind the scenes is basically based on your route or the URL. It's going to fetch the proper fragment of JSON for you for that page. And then it's going to walk that tree. And for every node in that tree, it's going to instantiate the React component that you want. And it's going to pass in the props for you. This is really cool. Whatever the author entered in the form is going to be passed right into your component. And then a third thing, just to connect to the editing experience, it'll actually create some annotations, HTML hints that the page editor says, oh, okay, here's where I need to create an edit bar or an area bar, those green bars that you saw in the editor. Let's get a little more technical now. Actually, the next slide is basically the same three boxes. So now I'm focusing on the center box, and the next one, you'll just see the side one's a little bit bigger. What we have here is on the left, it's how you configure the CMS. And it's very straightforward. This is how I configure those forms for each component. And maybe the most important thing is that each thing has a name, right? Title, CTA type. And on the right side, I have the React component. And in the middle, this is how we make the association, right? Your React app is it needs to somehow convert, right, from these, which component the author edited to the React component. So for example, it's just a simple mapping, right? So anytime we have this, anytime the JSON includes this component's headline, please create the headline React component. So this is that next slide. We already saw the middle piece. On the left side, the key thing is that each of these fields has a name, title, CTA type, details, and it has a field type. You know, what kind of controls should be rendered. Here's just text. Here's an option group. Here's some rich text. And then in your React component, basically you get those exact props passed in. So all you need to do is render them however you like. And the cool thing about that is it means that you can actually take the React components that you already have. Because we know that from our customers and partners that they often have a collection of like a component library or a design system that they like using, they know how to use it. And the cool thing is that you can use your components without making any changes to them because your props are going to be passed in. I don't see anything on this left side that says anything about Magnolia or about a CMS. So really, if you have your component, all you need to do is create this editing form that passes in the proper props, and it's going to work. And yeah, just to dive in a little bit more to this idea of components and components coming together, because cool things happen when they do. And the way we like to think of it is that, you know, a developer is already creating these React components, right? Let's say it's a carousel on the green here. This should indicate like a carousel component. And of course, the developer is writing some code to make that happen on the left side. And now with this technology, the CMS, we're basically putting like handles on this component so that an author can put that component wherever they want. Or we're putting like little knobs on it. That might be entering some text, but it might be choosing between 3 different styles, that sort of thing. Anything that could be, you know, any control you want to give them. And then the author can use those components that you've provisioned, and they can build the experience with them. And so we see this as like a really cool way that developers and authors can work together. So this should show like a developer is hacking away in their editor. They're provisioning these components. They're making them editable, making them available. And then the marketer or the content team is able to use those components, build cool experiences. And this should be this like stack of components going up into the ether as awesome experiences. And this is just kind of the same thing. The developer is working in the editor. The marketing team is working in the CMS, putting it all together. All right. So I've covered basically how what it is, the benefits, how it basically works, but you're probably curious how it really works. And I think the nicest way to see that is just, why don't we go ahead and implement a component, all right? So let's do that. I was gonna do like a section page, but then as I thought about it more, I thought, oh, this morning, I'm like, can we do something a little fancier? Wouldn't it be cool to take a component from an actual like design system out there? You know, there's all these cool React libraries, and that's kind of what we're promising here, is that you can use those off the shelf with the system. So I don't know if you guys know Ant Design. It's like a really nice design system. It has everything. And one of the things it has is an expand or a collapse component. It's kind of like an accordion, but we're going to do a simple one where it's just one panel. So how can we take this and make this available to our authors so they can have a little collapse, little widget? And this is kind of like the spec that you have, right? So here we have the UI that we want. Oops, we jumped back, here we go. The expander is gonna have a title, and that should be, so it's gonna have a title, and there's gonna be details once you expand it. That's gonna be the details. So we need a component that's gonna read those as props, and we're gonna need, what's the model like what should the author have? And this is like the fields that should be available to them, right? They should have title, which is gonna be just a simple text field. And we're going to have details, which is going to be a rich text field, gives the author a little more control to spice things up if they want. What are the steps? So we want to create or just find a React component off the shelf. In our case, we're just using one. Then we're going to create a CMS component, basically the form that's going to deliver those same props that the React component is expecting. And then the author can add that component to the page. And then we need to edit that mapping configuration to tell the app, hey, if the CMS says this component, build that, instantiate that React component, and then we get to take a look at it. So let's dive in. So I already have the component. So my project is nicely organized here. I have all the Magnolia stuff, all the CMS stuff in one place, and all the React stuff in one place, this React website. And in the React website, you should be very familiar with this. I've got components. Here's all my different components. And I just want to create a new component. What do these look like? Well, here would be like a really simple one. So why don't we it basically just gets its props and creates a div. So let's, well, actually I already have the component created, right? Because it's from this, this ant library. So, and I've already prepared something that's using that component. Let me just grab this. And we'll create a new file, which is going to be, we're going to call it expander. And so we're getting collapse from that ant library. And here's the component down here. It's expander. It takes props, title, and details. And I'm just, I'm going to pass in the title here in the panel. And then I'm going to, details, remember, is rich text. So it's going to actually be HTML. So I can use dangerously set inner HTML to dangerously render that content. Okay, so I know what I need. I need a form that's going to create this title and details props, right? Because those are what's going to be passed in. So let's save this component. Oh, and by the way, I already did the npm install of ampd in this project. Okay, so that's the React side. Let's go over to the CMS side. And the CMS side is pretty straightforward. So first, I basically need to tell the CMS, hey, this new component actually exists. And let's look at CTA. That's a nice simple one. It's really simple. It just is a little file that says that it's there. So expander.yaml. You can paste that in. We want to just call it expander. That's literally the label. And we want a dialog, right? So we want to link to the expander dialog. That's just the form that they can enter. And up here we have dialogues and components. So let's create one. Expander.yaml. And set a sample here. That's also pretty straightforward, right? So headline should be expander. That's the label for the dialog. And then here's the properties that we need to match the props for the React components. So this one should be, I think, title, right? Title. We don't need the I2N. And we want one more property. So this is the, what was it? The details. And most important, the name has to match. Details. And here we want a different, we don't just want text field, we want a rich text field. And let's just compare that to our JS, right? Title and details, that matches now, title and details. Excellent. Okay, cool. So now we have actually what we need in Magnolia, but we need to make it available, right? Remember, we have control over which components can be added in each area. So we just need to edit the page, not the page dialog, the page template. So here's a list of what's available in that main area. And we want to make the expander available. And it's this component. Cool. All right, so now we've wired up everything we need on the Magnolia side. It might not, it won't be able to render it yet, but it can at least let us add that component. So let's go ahead back to our CMS and just refresh the page. And now let's select the area. And once we've selected an area, we can add a component. And which components can we add? Now there's a new component that we can add that we just provisioned. And let's go ahead and just put it at the top. And look, here's the title and details we just provisioned. So let's say, what is an e-tour? Now you can experience leaving home. So we've added this expander. We can see that it's been placed. We were able to enter the content, but we don't see it rendered. And the reason is that we haven't actually made that connection, remember, between the SPA component and the CMS component. And first we're going to see it updated here, but let's go ahead and do that. So that's in the SPA, and SPA is going to be getting that in its JSON now, but it needs to know what to do when it gets an expander. Oops, did I copy it? So, expander. Oh, and of course, we need to import. It doesn't know what expander is. And it needs the expander component. Okay, should be all wired up. Oh, look at that. Yes. So here's my component. Cool. I have an expander now. So that's a nice new little component. So here it is. What is an e-tour? Now you can have a real culture experience while leaving home. That was so easy, even with installing AMD, right? And then if I want to see that in my CMS, then I just need to publish it, and I can see that in my CMS as well. But I want to jump back to the presentation. So let's get back to presenting. Demo time, this is just a recap, you saw it all. And that gets us to the wrap up. So Marcel, I think you had a few words you wanted to add.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Topher. What I can add is our experience with the onboarding of NSCD and all the authors that are actually authoring and editing NSCDE now. We launched about 3 months ago, I think, and since then onboarded about 40 users. And in this kind of times, we did the onboarding via a Zoom call like this. So I made a 2-hour Zoom call and showed a few of the authors, I think about 5, how everything works and where they can find everything. And I recorded the Zoom call, and now this Zoom call is spreading like wildfire internally in NSCD. And since then, no further questions so far. And so in grand total, this was one of our easiest onboarding experience from all of our projects. It was just one Zoom call, 2 hours recorded and shared. And every author and all the feedback we've got so far was that every author feels confident in editing and finding what they want to edit and publishing with confidence, so that the page in the end will look like what they are actually seeing in Magnolia. So for us, it works great since the beginning.
That's great. Yeah, then from my side, I mean, it's really the same message, but just abstracted away from just Neoscope, but for everybody. It's about empowering the content authors. And of course, it takes a bit longer upfront than just hard coding everything in your React app, but it pays off for your team big time. So how does it pay off? Well, your team can iterate faster, of course, because they've got all the components they need. You've given them that flexibility. Now they can do anything they want with a landing page without coming back. And we know that iterating and being able to respond to the market fast is critical to actually achieving goals. And then better rollout success. So when you have an authoring experience that's like so self-explanatory, people are just going to pick it up pretty fast, as Marcel was describing. And then it's also just limiting your training efforts, which, it depends on your team, but this can be like from a small deal to a huge deal. We have customers that bring on suppliers, and suppliers, they have hundreds of suppliers that log into their system in order to manage kind of their own content, like a ketchup brand or something like that. And then it's just about removing obstacles. I mean, it's about self-sufficiency. Nobody wants to be dependent or blocked by waiting for somebody else to be able to do something. When you do something like this, you're just removing obstacles and people can just get the job done. And then on the other side, you know, what this means for a developer is that you're not going to be saddled with as much maintenance and change requests on Monday morning. You can go ahead with your other greenfield projects and move ahead. You've kind of you know, taught the marketers how to fish so they can do their own job and you can do yours. So I just wanted to come back to this this slide. This is just what I kind of want to leave you with. I have one more slide after this, but you know, it's just about authors and developers being able to work together really efficiently and productively. And this is kind of like a system that enables that. But not just that, I kind of just added this slide today, but it's also for developers. It solves this like really long-standing issue that many of our partners and customers have wrestled with, and I've heard it from other CMSs. There used to always be this issue of, you know, the front-end team developing a prototype, and then you need to sort of back-endify it and templateify it and hand it over to the back-end team to add the logic. And then, oh, the front-end team is making some changes, there's change requests, and these things are getting out of sync, and who owns it? And this gets rid of all that. Like once and for good. It's the best solution I've seen so far. You've got one set of templates, the front-enders make the templates, and the cool thing is that to bring to the CMS, you don't need to change the templates. They stay how they are. All you need to do is like sprinkle on some CMS bindings, and now you can CMSify it. But you didn't have to mess with those templates. So it also can make it really clear between, for example, if these are separate teams, the front-enders have their responsibility, the back-enders have theirs, and it lets them also collaborate very nicely. Just one set of templates. So I hope you enjoyed our presentation today. I just want to encourage you, if you're curious about how all this works, to check out the tutorial. We have a version for React, Angular, and Vue, and you can go from like 0 to hero in, let's say, about an hour and a half. Like this is installing everything. You're going to be going through a really simple project, and you'll even create your own component, an even more interesting one than I showed you today. That's a different project. You can also check out this project. Here's a link, which you'll get later, to this exact website demo. And then for those of you that are thinking about SEO and maybe using or considering doing static site generation, we also have a project showing how you can use this with Gatsby. And when you do that, then hopefully you'll be happy and your authors will be happy too. You've got our information. Please get in touch if you have questions or suggestions. And with that, I guess Cass can handle the questions, right?
Yes, thank you, Marcel and Topher, sorry,
Aww.
for that very, I wanted to say very informative presentation. You know, I like that. Happy users, happy developers. That's a good hashtag that we can use. It's also great to know how easy the onboarding went with Neoscope's projects and that it has been so good so far. I am sure you can also apply it on your own projects. I also like the visual representation of how it all comes together, you know, putting handles and knobs and components so that authors can create and tune things. I think that's a good, you know, visual representation in the end. And of course, for authors, there's no need to feel intimidated because developers do it in a headless fashion while authors keep their what you see is what you get view. I think that was really interesting overall from knowing that it works with an actual customer as shown by Marcel and the how-tos demonstrated by Topher. I would now like to officially open the Q&A session, and we got a few questions in the panel. So let's start with the first one. Are you guys ready, Marcel and Topher? Okay, so the first one would be from Marvin Kirchhoff. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, okay, please pardon me. How is Magnolia personalization used through the headless approach? How is it cached and how does it compare to a legacy server scenario?
Yeah, it's a great question, Marvin. Currently, in this first version of the Visual SPA editor, we actually are not supporting the Magnolia official personalization that is very high on the roadmap. It's at the top, and we're going to be rolling that out soon. Until then, there are alternatives. I mean, you can still achieve personalization. You simply don't get out-of-the-box connection. You can't use the page editor UI for doing the personalization. You have to, come up with a different approach, which maybe I can write a little write-up on some alternatives, because we're getting that question a lot. So we knew it was important. It's on the roadmap. We're working on it, but it's not fully integrated yet.
All right, I'm sure we can all wait for that. Thank you for that question, Marvin. Second one is from Mike Jablonski. Again, I'm sorry. The Magnolia documentation says, currently the following functionalities are not supported in SPA rendering. Area in area nesting. Is this still true? Your demo seems to have nested areas, for example, the columns component. Maybe you can elaborate on this subject.
I think that documentation is out of date, to be honest, so I apologize for that. We certainly had emphasized that as a requirement, and all of our demo projects illustrate having an area in a component. So I don't know of that not working anymore, but sorry for the confusion there with the documentation. I'm gonna, you can send me an email. I'll take a look at, I'll see if I can find it, but if I can't, actually I can get in touch with you and
That's from Mike.
yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Next one, let's see. It's from Mei Lin Lim. Hi there, is the headless, sorry, I'm just gonna read first before I read it out loud. So could you create a form component and share among pages by editor without creating the same form again in different pages, or even share form fields in between forms in different pages? Is that supported in headless? Or something along that line?
Yeah. That would definitely be possible. Yeah. It's not like an explicit feature that we provide with it. But I mean, one thing to keep in mind is that your React app, you use all of the techniques that you know already how to do in whatever front-end language that you're doing. And we're providing you some bindings of how to connect that to the CMS. And what I showed today is kind of the default one. You have a page, it's a tree of pages, every page has a set of components, and everything maps perfectly one-to-one. But that scenario of like a component that's, in your case, that form, you could have that on another page, and you could, in your React app, you can make two calls, for example. You can hit the main page that has like all of the inline components like I showed, and you can make another call to get that form and render that somewhere else in your React app. So our kind of design decision has been to stay as close as possible to the knowledge that you have from your front-end framework working like it does, and then just giving you very much control over how that interaction with the CMS works. And so I would encourage you to just use the knowledge that you know, and if you're really stuck, then ask on our forums or eventually contact our support team for how to solve it.
Exactly. So you can always reach us out via support or direct contact if that's really needed. Let's see. We have some more questions out here. I hope you're still fine, Topher, to take them, or maybe even Marcel. So again, from Marvin, could Magnolia component models still be used? How could you modify entries from a dialog on the Magnolia side for a single component before it is sent to the SPA?
Right now, no, it's not supported. Basically, well, the way we work by default is using the Magnolia delivery endpoints, and the delivery endpoint doesn't respect like a component model. It just delivers the raw content. Now, there would be, you in the React app or in the front end component, you actually have control over which endpoint you want to hit. So what you could do is simply create your own custom endpoint that doesn't use the delivery endpoint, but processes those models and gives you the content that you want. So actually, I changed my answer. Yes, it is possible. It just means that you need to have a custom delivery endpoint. And then on the other side, you can actually see in this demo project, you can, an alternative is that in the front end, you can change the data or process the data that's come from the delivery endpoint before it gets sent to all the components. So that's a totally accepted practice.
How are different ACLs and roles working with headless? How do you
Same as normal. Okay. Yeah, everything's same as normal.
Sounds good.
The delivery endpoint respects all the ACLs, so you only get the content that the current user has access to.
Okay. One from Bhupesh Belchandan. Can we connect custom content type to headless component?
Yes, totally. That's what I was showing with those tours. You saw those tours components getting rendered, and those were coming from a custom content type.
That's a good example, actually. And we've had that for ages now. It's good that we can reuse it with a new scenario. One from Anonymous. Ooh. How are references, for example, image UUID resolved in the JSON or in JSON? Yeah,
that's in the delivery endpoint. I mean, again, you could go with a totally custom endpoint, but the delivery endpoint will do resolving for you. It's called reference resolvers. And you can configure the endpoint really nicely. It's really slick. And you can say exactly what you want resolved. You can get the UUIDs, but you can have it also give you the link to the asset or the link to some other content, where you can even do a reference resolving where, like, if you're linking out to tours, you can say, please give me that tour content in line. You make one request, you get the full page, you get all the tour content. So it's just perfect for rendering. It's really easy.
Okay. Now, Nicholas Forstud, he had some series of questions for you. Sounds good still? You have no choice, aren't you? So to what degree do you make use of the Magnolia CLI while developing?
Yeah, that's, I'm sorry, it's totally on the roadmap as well. We have not adapted ourselves, the CLI, to create these components, but it would be great. I mean, you saw how I create those things by hand. We totally intend to create generators to do it as well, but of course you don't need to wait for that. And also, the CLI is so flexible. I'm not sure if you know about the prototypes in the CLI. If you're tired of waiting for us, you can create prototypes that will generate whatever files you want. It's pretty slick. It's really easy to configure. Just check out the CLI documentation. But yes, we will deliver that soon.
And then the second question is, do you personally prefer to work on the SPA bit first or CMS bit first? What order makes sense?
I think it makes sense. It kind of depends who you are, really. But you can totally work on the, I think most common is people work on the SPA first, right? You might already have one and you just want to CMSify it, so to speak. CMSify it, new word.
Why not?
But your front end team is going to be working with the designers and building it all out, and that's totally fine. And then you can go ahead and add the CMS bindings as you go.
And why are Magnolia templates and dialogue separated into two distinct files? That's right.
Yeah, I guess historical reasons. Yeah, we've considered that sometimes it would be cool to make like in Vue that you can bring that stuff all together or have it separate, but that's just the way it is now. I mean, it keeps the concerns super clean and separate, but yeah, it's a bit more verbose somehow.
All right, now we got one for Neoscope. Marcel, how long did the realization of the project take?
We are working, actually we're still working on the NSCDDE, so we relaunched only a few parts until now, and we are working right now over 1.5 years. So I think there's no real conclusion you can make to the implementation of Magnolia and React, or the combination in this case. But The project itself is still ongoing, and we have many things on the roadmap we would like to incorporate and expand on the NRC-DDE. So it was from the beginning a project for many years, and we've launched the first part three months ago, I think, and will be launching every few months another part of the whole picture.
Sounds good. That sounds fast. Thank you for the question, and thank you, Marcel, for letting us know. Let's see. So we got a few more questions here before we finally come to an end. So I'll just fire away as quickly as possible.
Sure.
Is it possible to perform authenticated requests to third-party APIs from a component hosted in Magnolia CMS?
Yeah. You can do that from within the CMS. If you want to do it from the front end, you could also do it by making your request back to the Magnolia first, and then having Magnolia make that request. We have this new really nice feature called REST clients, where it's really easy to configure Magnolia to make requests. So you can use Magnolia as a proxy if you want, and you could do that either before. Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to do it, but yes, it is possible.
So it is possible. Thank you very much, Luca Gismundo, for your question. So I have two questions related to TypeScript here. I'm not sure if this is for Topher as well or Marcel, just go ahead. One is from Anonymous and the other is from Henry Vasquez. So I'll just read them one after the other. Is TypeScript supported out of the box? Second one is, are there any plans for providing a TypeScript generator which generates models based on the data structure in the YAML dialog files?
We were thinking it would be cool that you could go either way as far as like generating things automatically. Like you could say, based on the component, it could be cool to generate the dialogue. Or you could say, based on the dialogue, it'd be cool to generate the component. We've thought about it. It would be fun. It'd be a fun community project if somebody else is interested. But no concrete plans there. And then as far as TypeScript, being compatible with TypeScript, I have to be honest. I haven't tried it. Like our demo projects are in JavaScript. I don't see any reason that TypeScript would not be supported, but I can't tell you 100% that it's going to work. But should do. Let us know if it doesn't. Create a ticket, and I'll check it too.
Thank you very much. Another one from Anonymous. Any ideas for server-side rendering of React apps for SEO?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. And I think that's how most people will actually be using it. And the key answer is that it's totally headless. That means any server-side rendering framework that you want to use, it's in your ballpark. Like Magnolia you don't need to worry about Magnolia there. Magnolia is just doing authoring and generating that JSON, and your front end is your own. And how you want to, if you want to run that front end and deliver it through an SSG system, that's on you. You can use whatever best practice you think is best. And we do have this a link to that Gatsby demo. You can see how we did it with Gatsby. I would like to host and I would like to promote other integrations. So again, if you do something, let us know. And in the meantime, we're also going to be working to put together some demo projects showing how you can do it with ViewPress or how you can do it with Next and so forth.
Okay. Second to the last question. What if the React components need data which is not injected automatically? For example, data from a custom path, which may be resolved in FreeMarker using CMS FN get content by path and such methods.
Yeah, again, your front end is you totally control the SPA, so you can make as many requests as you want. You can make another request to get that content. If you really like FreeMarker and are familiar, very comfortable with it, you can actually just go ahead and make a FreeMarker template and have a page that essentially acts as a JSON endpoint and just delivers JSON, and then you can use whatever FreeMarker you want. Otherwise, that kind of related to Marvin's question, you could create a custom REST endpoint if you want to do it that way. The message is the front end is in your control, and there's so many different scenarios. But yes, it's certainly possible.
Okay. As our final question of the day, are links inside what you see, what you get editors already resolved to their targets? It's pretty...
Are the links resolved? Yes, they are resolved. And again, you have control over that based on the delivery endpoint. You can say how you want things resolved. If you want the link resolved or not. If you just want the UUID and you want to handle it yourself, you can do that too. But yes, the links, if you configure the endpoint properly, then it gives you the full link, and you can see that in the demo projects.
All right. So thank you very much, both Topher and Marcel, for answering the questions. Thank you also as well for everyone for the comments and questions, and of course for your time today. We look forward to hearing about your own success stories. To get to that point, we have provided multiple free resources that you can use in getting started. You know what Topher shared with his slides, and do not worry, we're going to share the slides with you. We'll also be sending out a link to the recording of today's webinar. So that has been it. This has been Cass Weber of Magnolia. Thank you for joining. Stay safe and stay healthy, everyone. Bye.